so long thinking I had to fight this by myself. But I can stand here today because y'all stood with me. Because you stood with me.
We got you. Always.
That's right, man. I ain't alone anymore.
No, you're not.
Good. Start. Good.
Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of the Hearts of Men. We're your hosts for this evening's conversation. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach, and I'm joined by my brothers, the Uncle Junior, the Consistency Coach, none other than Mr. Garfield Martin, and the young gun on the panel, son of Timothy, the available man, none other than Brother Tawami Gaddy. Gentlemen, how are you doing on this beautiful Friday evening?
I am doing well. Had some family time this weekend, got in that yard, got my hands dirty and stuff like that. So put up some ceiling fans. So yeah, man, I had an eventful last 3 days. So
Okay, all right.
I just got back home about an hour ago.
Okay.
Yeah, man. You know, it's just I sing the same song every Friday. I'm here with my brothers, man. So I ain't really got nothing to complain about. You know what I mean? It's been a busy week, very busy week. Lost one guy, but our workflow has significantly increased these last couple of weeks. But that's fine because you know the paycheck's still clearing every other week. So for God and country.
There you go. There you go. I'm with you guys.
Say again?
The Knicks up 1-0.
And the Knicks went up 1-0 in the
There you
final.
go.
About to
There
go
you
up 2-0 tonight. So you know.
That's what's up. And with you guys, man. I had a busy week, but all is well. No issues, no complaints. And like you said, Gaddy, it's Friday night. I'm here with my brothers and sisters and everybody who is joining us this evening. One of the highlights of my week, I must admit. So again, if you're here, first and foremost, I want to invite you to get in the comment section and say good evening, good afternoon, whatever you say. Just say hi so that we'll know that you're there, because on this channel we like to give you your flowers so you can appreciate it. I don't think we do that enough in our community, just collectively. So we want to make sure that we acknowledge your presence, because you can be anyplace else, but you chose to be here with us, and we do not take that lightly. That said, good evening and welcome to the rebirth of Nick D. I'm sorry, Crystal Everett, his divine appointment. Who else am I missing? Quiet Storm 78, Atlas Keys. I'm sorry, Lisa Keys, not Atlas Keys the key. And anybody else who's out there, again, get in the comment section, let us know you're there. By the way, if you have not hit the like button already, go ahead and hit the like button. I think we got a show that you guys are going to enjoy. And make sure that you share it on your social media social media platform. Because again, we want to make sure that we're getting information out far, deep, and wide. Good to see you, Shell, and welcome to this evening's conversation. That said, as always, we have and it might be on the right side of y'all, so pardon me if I'm different, but yeah, it's over there for y'all. But it's here for me. So this is where it's at. Anyway, we have this QR code up here. This QR code is if you want to give the community. Again, we appreciate it. Everything that you give this community, we give it right back in the form of something that we create that's for your value. That said, do we have any other comments or any other things that we need to recognize before we get started? Nope. All right, let's get it going. Why do so many men feel stuck, unfulfilled, or like they're living a life far below their true potential? Whether you realize it or not, this question lies at the heart of your struggles. Most of us fail to reach greatness because we're asking the wrong questions, settling for mediocre solutions, and unknowingly breaking the rules that lead to success. Tonight's episode of The Hearts of Men, we're unpacking why 97% of men never reach their potential and the 3 critical rules they're breaking that are holding them back. Stick with us to the end, because we're not just exploring the problem. We're also revealing practical, game-changing steps you can start applying today to transform your life. That said, let's get started. Now, gentlemen, I sent out a video, I think it was last night. And if I did not send it to you, I do apologize. I will send it to you at the end of this evening's show. And it was a video by Marvin, the comedian. If you guys know who I am, know who I'm talking about, Big Heavyset Marvin. It's a pretty funny guy. But he made a very valid point, and that point was in reference to the younger society. But he also talked about how the older society kind of coddles things of that nature. And so, of course, this evening I want to focus on the men because I think when we think about it, each generation that precedes seems to believe that there is a problem. So those who preceded us, they looked at us when we was young and it was like, y'all little young Thundercats, y'all just don't get it. Y'all ain't getting it. Y'all don't understand what life is really about. And so now that we are them, we're pretty much saying the same thing about the younger generation. They're kind of lost. They don't have enough resiliency. There's a lot of things that are being said. And I think when they become us, they're going to do the exact same thing for the younger generation to come. So that's kind of like what kind of spawned this conversation about why 97% of men never reach their full potential. And I really want to get into the 3 rules that we are breaking. So I got a question that I kind of want to kickstart this conversation off with. And that question is, what is one unconscious pattern or belief that's been running our life in your thoughts?
The chase for self gratification.
Say more.
So I believe that, and it's funny. I was actually having this conversation at work while I was closing out. I feel like we live in like some real strange times, and I was actually joking where I was like, I think you got to be careful. I think the Viv jab did something to people's brains because it's like as soon as we open the world back up, everybody just got a little, do, in certain words. Certain words I got to be careful of. So I'm trying to, and I'm like we became so selfish so fast, so like we even drive like we don't care if we run somebody off the road into a ditch as long as we get 10 seconds faster to the location we're trying to go. And it's like everything we do is just that everybody is out chasing what makes them look better, what gives them more notoriety, what makes them more money. We forget about and I hate terms like the little man, blah, blah. We forget about the other man. There are other men in the same circle with us, and we only focus on ourselves. And everybody's just chasing this self-grad down to the point to where it's like you can even see where a lot of the ministries are. And somebody told me a lot of ministries been like that. We just started opening our eyes and seeing it. And it might be so, right? But you even see it in ministry. I hear ministers say, yeah, my ministry, my church, my building, my this. And that's why my behind don't go there. Because I'm not trying to be at nobody, no Dwayne Dwyer ministries. I'm trying to be at the ministries that belong to the Most High. Now, Dwayne Dwyer could be the preacher there. He could be the vessel, but I ain't going to Dwayne Dwyer's ministry. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, and for y'all out there that beat me up, I'm just using Coach name because he here, it's my brother. But we've gotten very, very selfish in all of our ambitions. It feels like so. All I see is a world of everyone's chasing their self gratification. I want to feel better. I want to look better. I want to be better. Like that's cool. I want to look better, feel better, and be better so that I could be better for my children and my family, not just so that people could walk around and say, "Oh, look what he got on," or "Look, he sound." I don't really care.
What is one unconscious pattern or belief that's ruining our life? I think when I looked at the topic, why 97% of men never reach their potential, I was going to think I thought that I was going to start off by talking a lot about ignorance and the fact that a lot of men just grow up and they just don't know. And I think, maybe I will come back to it. But I think one of the things that may not get talked about enough is the pressure or what we were taught as far as we have to take care of everybody else and we have to take care of people, whether that is our kids, our adult children who want to stay at home until they're 50, whether that is our parents, taking care of them because of for whatever reason their life is what it is and they may need some support. But I think that part of the thing that is an unconscious pattern or belief that's ruining our life, and what I mean by ruining your life, I don't mean ruin it in the sense to where it's like there is no end, but I want to say I want to use the word maybe adjust a little bit. When you're having to take care of your elderly parents or you're having to take care of adult children, or this is what you've been taught, this is what is kind of normal and what is kind of preached and kind of what you're supposed to do. How many times do we look at the NFL draft or the NBA draft, and one of the first things that the athletes talk about buying is their mom a house? Nothing wrong with that. I don't have an issue with it at all. But we don't want to talk about why he feels like that's what he's supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, I'm not saying that he shouldn't do that. If that's what someone wants to do, then go by all means, go ahead and make that purchase for your mom. But I would think that one of the things that is ruining and is kind of when it comes, it's kind of unconscious, is that we're supposed to take care of everybody or at least certain people.
Yeah, I like where you guys are starting off with. And to add to what you're saying, I'm kind of torn between two I really want to mention. One of them is what I talked about on Tuesday night, which is all about more so of manipulation. And I talked about a particular principle or a particular tactic when it comes down to manipulating other people. And if you guys remember that, just put the tactic in the comment section. But I think I'm going to go with I think I want to go with survival, being stuck in a survival mindset. And because you're in a survival mindset, you look at everything through the lens of survival. And so, what does that really look like? That looks like you don't see things from the lens of abundance, you see things from the lens of lack. Everything is either done, everything that is done is either done for you or done against you. And if you can't see the for, then that person, that thing, that circumstance, whatever is done against you. And it by itself, thank you. And it by itself is problematic because it is a foundational root that does not allow us to collaborate. In fact, even when we think that we're collaborating, the only thing we're doing is connecting, but we're depending on another person to do everything. And we just participate in the everything that the other person is doing. And then when it comes down to it, it's almost as though we look at the time that we have available as more valuable, yet we claim to be a part of a thing. That is in essence, a survival mindset. It does not collaborate. Anything that doesn't collaborate, right? It segregates. And if it segregates from that lens, now it's all about the individual. So now survival creates self-centeredness, and self-centeredness now becomes a problem. And I think that really leads into the things that you guys are talking about because I'm agreeing with everything that you guys are saying, but I think at the foundational level, you have to look at where does those things come from? Why do we look at what I feel the need to do for mama and things of that nature? Is it probably because of the things that was instilled in me because my daddy wasn't there to teach me something other than, it's a number of different things that we can look at, and those are symptoms of it. But I think the root cause is that we stay stuck in survival and we never grow beyond that to where we get to the point of collaborating. And it's a very difficult thing to look at a person and know they may have done a thing to quote unquote wrong you, but then still seek to collaborate and participate with that person for the sake of the child. So that's kind of like what I want to start off with. And I think if you guys take your perspective, your points of views, right, and then go from there into question number 2 and expound on your point from that point on. So what if we brought those underlying thoughts that govern those patterns? Like, so now we're looking at the thought that governs the patterns into conscious awareness and choose differently. What do you think would be the outcome?
I think you'd have a different outcome. I think if you take mine, for example, taking care of people, you take that and you flip that around. Now I'm conscious and I'm aware about, this pressure and this need to take care of Coach and take care of Gaddy. Every time Gaddy need $20, he just call on me. Every time Coach need $10, he just call on me. This, hey man, we brothers, man. We on the show. We on the show on Friday nights, man. We chat, blah, 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 man. You should be able to give me $10, give me $20, right? So if I'm aware and I'm not these guys, but if I'm aware of the fact or that what I've been maybe even like you said on Tuesday, manipulated to think that I'm supposed to take care of people, now I can figure out who and if I want to help, right? And I don't have to, I understand that you may be in a situation, but I also can understand that I need to put up limits and I need to put up boundaries to protect myself. I don't have a problem with helping. However, there are going to be parameters with it because I am aware that maybe there is this need to want or this perspective or whatever that I'm supposed to help people. If I'm aware of this, I think that I can make better decisions about it. I'm aware of it. I wasn't always aware of it. So speaking from experience, I choose when and where and how I want to help people. You know what I mean? Whether it's financially, whether it's with my time, whether it's with my words, whatever it may be to whoever may need or want, you know what I mean, that care from me. You know what I'm saying? So that's my way. I think at the end of the day, it makes things better because you now you have the awareness. So now you have the awareness, you can do something about the awareness and with the situation.
Whew. So the pattern, and I know I joke talking about the jab, right? But in all honesty, I really think my pattern, and I think most patterns, the ones that run our lives and that especially that runs us down the path that destroys community, that destroys family, that destroys, you know, uh, uh, proper upbringing. You know, I don't really think you got to go any further. Once you destroy community and family, you done destroyed everything. Everything else is an illusion of togetherness. But it's just I don't even know what to call it. But it's spiritual. The patterns come from forces that we often disregard because we believe so. I don't want to say I don't want to say it wrong. I think sometimes we have misplaced our our faith, if you would say, right? It's not that I don't believe that the Most High can't, but I know what He said He will allow and will do. And so when I say that, what does it look like if we brought these patterns into light and we chose differently? What happens is now what you bring into light is you're exposing the patterns of the enemy and how he's guiding people in the wrong direction. Here's the thing, and now I do understand that this Isaiah scripture is talking about King Nebuchadnezzar uh, before he got knocked off his high horse, right? But he says, "Oh, how hast thou fallen down from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning?" All right. But one of the things he says that thou sayest in thy heart that thou will be like the Most High, that thou will sit on the mountain of the congregation. Well, what is that telling me? That the desire is not just for him to have anybody worshiping him, because people who don't believe in the Most High, he don't really care about, because he already won with you. But the goal is to get people who say they believe to be following the opposite of what they say they believe, thinking that they're believing. I know I said a lot and it sounds crazy, but you will exposing it and bringing it to light will expose his hand. And then not only will it expose his hands, it will expose me of whether or not I fell into the hands of the enemy, or if I'm walking in the ways of the Most High. And so that will bring me to a place to where, like, choosing differently means finally choosing the Father. Because I don't. How would I feel? I think in my head, like as I'm thinking about this, I was thinking, how would I feel is if it was time to enter into the kingdom, and come to find out, all my life I thought I was believing, but I was walking towards according to my flesh. And that's how we get caught up. And that's really what this is about. It's to make you choose your flesh first. That's how we get into the self-gratification. It starts with self-indulgences. And self-indulgences become habits. It become hard to break, especially when you find out that you're an adult and you can get away with most of it. All right, because who's checking you? You know, and before I'm about to be funny, like before I get the clock put on me, I'm a land my plane right there.
No, I love it. I love it. Because it's almost like what you're saying and what I'm saying is almost, they go hand in hand. Because part of the thing that ties into what you're saying is that if I can create in your mind that there is not enough, right? You look at resources, there's not enough to go around. It's almost like, I don't know if you guys remember a while back, they were talking about there's a water shortage. I'm like, you mean to tell me all that ocean out there and we got a water shortage? Come on, man, stop playing. When you believe that you have, thank you, a scarcity mindset, when you believe things are scarce, not enough money, it's not enough resources. Like, go back to that pandemic that took place back in 2020, right? One of the issues and concerns that exist there, not enough, not enough masks, not enough hand sanitizer, not enough bleach, not enough alcohol. Like, if I can create a scarce in your reality, then I can promote fear. So now when you look at those things become the root thought behind the patterns of behavior that you have. So now when I look at people, it's like, if you giving some, let me stockpile and get mine. What you gonna give? I'm gonna pinch a little off the top, and I'm gonna keep, I'm gonna give you I'm gonna give you that 0.5%. I'm gonna keep the 99.5 for me, right? Because you're viewing something through the lens of scarcity. And the unfortunate part is that as long as all you see is scarcity, you're going to always be an isolated individual, because you never get to the point of fully collaborating with anyone else. And the sad part about it is that you think you are, but everybody else sees that you're not. So when you take that and you bring that to your conscious level of awareness, and you become intentional about not behaving through the lens of scarcity, now it's like, okay, let me explore something different. Let me test and see how good he really is. Let me do something different that I did not have the background to support. I never seen where I was giving up, where a person gave their last to somebody else in need, but then by that same token, they did not go back expecting that person to repay them. I never seen anybody give somebody and say, "Hey, you in need? Here you go. It's $1,000. I'm gonna give you your money back, and just take it as a gift. I never seen that growing up. Why haven't I seen that growing up? For a couple of reasons. I don't recall people having $1,000 to give. That's number one. And then number two, well, they'd be like, if I give you $20, going back to Uncle Junior example, I give you $20, when I'm gonna get my $20 back? Well, are you really giving or you loaning money? Now you're a loan shark, So it's like when we bring these things into conscious awareness, it's like that changes the ways, it changes something internal in you. It changes your thought patterns, it changes the way that you behave, it changes the way that you deal with people. And that becomes huge in my mind because that taps into the beginning thought processes that I wanted to create as we start talking about why these 97% of men fail to reach their full potential. I can never reach my full potential with a scarcity mindset. It's just not going to happen. I will survive my way into my grave and make everybody else think, well, life was good for me. But you never experienced what he said in the book. You didn't have that experience. You fooled yourself to make yourself believe that. But yet, we all come together. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna go that route. Listen, thank you for joining us. If you have not hit that like button yet, please hit that like button. And by all means, do not hesitate to share this because we're really about to dive deep into this conversation. Good to see you. She is becoming, we missed you. I'm glad you're here with us tonight. Listen, first talking point that we want to uncover on tonight's conversation is the consciousness crisis. Why most men are unconsciously stuck. Now, most men operate at a victim consciousness level, which is characterized by blame, shame, guilt, and apathy. They're unconsciously breaking all three rules, which we haven't got to yet, because they haven't awakened to their purpose. Carl Jung said it perfectly. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. 76% of men report feeling stuck in at least one major area of their life: career, relationships, or purpose. And that's according to the American Psychological Association in 2024. Harvard Business Study also highlighted that only 3% of people have written goals. And by virtue of this, 3% earns 10 times more than the other 97%. Lastly, according to the CDC, men are 3.5 times more likely to die by suicide than women, often linked to feelings of purposelessness and lack of control. So, gentlemen, I want to ask this question to you because I think it's just fitting at this point. If we are honest, based on your observations, what area of life do you believe most men are still operating as victims instead of taking full ownership of their lives?
Oh, you want to go? Go ahead.
Now you can go.
I wrote down relationships, but then I changed my mind.
All right,
And
good.
I want to go with I think I want to leave that little meat or that gristle on the bone. I'll leave that for Gaddy if you want to tackle that one. But no, I'm gonna think about I think sometimes it comes when you look at finances. Sometimes you hear conversations that go into it's not my fault of the reason why I can't get this job. And I'm not saying that some of people's reasons why they can't get hired for certain jobs is not a real thing. I'm talking about the people that are operating, you know, as victims instead of taking full ownership for their lives. All three of us spent time in the military. Coach talked about, right before the show, all the different places that he did or didn't go or that he went. And I talked about, just, places where I went or just, jobs and not places, but positions that we held while we were in the military. Well, the thing about holding different positions is the more positions that you hold, in theory, you become more well rounded, and you're looked at more likely to be someone who can be promoted to the next level, right? So you know how to do A and B and C and D versus somebody like me who was stuck doing A, and then finally got a different position and started doing something to D. But when I got to B, I didn't really know how to do it. So I think some people, when it comes to positions and stuff like this, they feel like that, you know, it's someone else's reason why they can't get promoted in their job. They're not looking at, well, hey, I didn't go to any college, my APFT score sucks. They're not looking at what I did or didn't do in order to make myself marketable for that next position or to make myself more qualified for the next position. So I think that's one of the areas when it comes to finances and working, and how this ties into the finances is that, when we don't have money to buy certain things or to live a certain quality of life that we may want to have, maybe I want to live like Gaddy, right? So I need to make $150,000 a year versus being okay with, you know, lowering, my lifestyle. Maybe I don't get to go on a Disney cruise and 3 Disney vacations every year. Can I be content with the lifestyle to whereas I can go on 1 Disney cruise every other year? You know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes we got it twisted when it comes to the victim mindset. Sometimes instead of people taking full ownership of, like I said at the beginning, some things may be out of our control, but I do believe that, in a lot of cases, people do have control over and do have full ownership over their lives. And I think finances and careers that we choose plays a big part in that.
I love everything you just said. Relationships was definitely my go-to. Um, I apologize. Um, when I when I think about it, because you use the term, that that we operate in as victims instead of taking full ownership of their lives. I think it's definitely relationships, but it's cultural, right? I think culturally, um, in relationships, and I'm speaking culturally, so there's always caveats. Um, women control culturally in this climate the relationship aspect, and so when we start talking about, uh, oh man, Lord, somebody is at my door dropping something off. I apologize. I I apologize. Told them tomorrow.
I got it. Um, I think for me, and this is like we say based on our observations, one of the biggest areas of life that we believe that most men are still operating from victims instead of taking full ownership of their lives, it has to be in the space of relationships. Why am I saying that? Because, like I keep saying, all things are relationship. And it's not just their interaction with somebody of the opposite sex, it's also their interaction with the same sex. That also leads into workplace dynamics, that leads into family dynamics, that leads into friendships, things of that nature. And I think going back to what I said previously, because they haven't taken full responsibility for their life, they blame everybody else for the things that is happening to them. They won't let me get that promotion because XYZ. They, did this, therefore it's preventing me from being a good father. No, you're preventing yourself from being a good father. You didn't get that promotion. Maybe you need to look at the merit that you're working under. Maybe you need to look at the things that you're doing in that job. Look at your job description. Look at your performance evaluation, right? If your performance evaluation was not stellar, ask questions during your performance evaluation. We really have to get to the point, in my humble opinion, as it pertains to how we relate to other people. We really have to get to the point to where we stop blaming them, blaming other people, blaming other circumstances, things of that nature for how we show up. When I say all things are relationships, it's really just saying, excuse me, it's really just saying how you relate to that thing. Whether I'm talking finances, which again is another one, right? How do you relate to money? What is your money mindset? How does that work in your life? When it comes in, does it have to leave out just as fast? If it leaves out just as fast, what direction are you sending it in? Are you sending it in the direction of foot action, of foot locker, and all that other great stuff? Or are you sending it into investments, things of that nature, planning for the future? One of my biggest issues in our community, if I can just be transparent, is almost like we will spend top dollar for things and we won't spend $1. I won't even say top dollar. We won't spend $1 for the right thing. The thing that has the benefit to do more for you in your life, you will spend pennies to a dollar on that, if that. Oh, let me get that at a discount. Can I put that on layaway? Can I come? Let me hit you back up. Let me start now, but I'm gonna hit you back up when I get my check. No, you don't tell Foot Locker that. Foot Locker may even have a layaway plan for you, but you're gonna put something on it. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing that gets me. We invest our money in things that have never and never will invest in your growth, your development, your education, your understanding of what this life is that you've been gifted with. So when you look at us not taking full responsibility of our life, it has to start with how we relate to everything external to us. And why is that a problem? Because we don't like the person on the inside.
Man, that's dope. I want to first apologize. I always put everybody that knows me know I'm on a no contact order from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock on Fridays. Don't talk to me, don't call me. I'm my priorities here. So I do apologize. Man, and I love what I just caught. Uh, but when I'm for me talking about relationships, I think, and we just talking about being stuck. So I think as men, a lot of us do not see ourselves and taking the relationship concept as serious as I think we could, because I think a lot of us, I think we prepare too much for what if she walks away. Right. And though it may be something that somebody where we may say is smart, we prepare to walk, blah blah blah. But I don't think that's going to have a good long-term effect, because the moment you start thinking preparing for it to end, you stop living for it to last. Right. I say that, and I seen it happen with our women. At least in my generation, I heard women in my generation always being taught, always be prepared, always have money for a rainy day, and always have this, always have that, always have this. You know, well, a lot of those same women that I know do all these preparations to exit always end up being the one exiting. And so it's like, well, you didn't prepare money for a rainy day. You prepared money for a sunny day. Like it wasn't raining, but you still left to go find the sun, right? And I think that is going to just cycle over if men start living their lives preparing for women to walk away because of how many times it happened, or it happened to my daddy, or it happened to, like, I think we're just repeating the same cycle that we're complaining about. It happened on this side, now we're pushing it on this side, and now this side we're going to start doing the same thing. And so I think we've put ourselves in a place and in a position to where and I speak for myself, to where we feel unfulfilled when it comes to the aspect of being a man in our family, and being a father, being a husband, you know. And I think that has caused us to even stop trying to be community leaders. Because how can I lead a community when I don't even lead my own family?
You know, you said something the other day, um, and I really liked it. I really liked it, and it was in relation to marriage. And you made mention, we focus on getting married, but we don't necessarily focus on being husbands. And I thought that was such a good statement because at the end of the day, if I change the dynamics of this conversation to a particular job, I have to focus on becoming the individual who can actually have that job first. So I make sure that I have the credentials, I make sure I have the proper education, certification, whatever Asian it requires me to have, I go pursue that first to get the prerequisite understanding before I even feel confident enough to submit the application for that particular job, to submit that resume for that particular job. And it's funny that we just don't seem to get that in the realm of relationship. We don't seem to get that in the realm of marriage. Like, if you really stop and think about it, and I'll raise my hand before I even ask the question. Whoever said that you need to understand what it's like to be a husband before you even put yourself in the pool to be married? Whoever said when you were younger that you have to understand what it's like to be a wife and have those credentials before you even put yourself in the pool to be married? So we look at the title as something to attain, minus the prerequisite understanding and knowledge on how to house that thing. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about right now, because when we look at it, even moving into adult manhood, there should have been some things that we understood. It shouldn't have not just been an age thing. It should have been a prerequisite understanding, certain qualifications, certifications, whatever that looks like. And there's only really one place that I can get that from. And somehow we've moved away from that and say, hey, well, you know what? You'll figure it out. And you'll recon by fire. It's a tactic, may not necessarily be a good one. So you're just going to recon and just shoot up everything till you get there, and then eventually you'll find where you're going and you'll discover something. And then you're probably going to mess that up, and then you're going to go do it again. You're going to mess that up, and you're going to do it again. You're going to mess that up, and so forth and so on. So now you're leaving a road of carnage along the way just to get to this one here, to where you have failed your way into the potentiality of success. Maybe. But there's another vote, because she has to have either had that prerequisite knowledge or failed her way into potentiality of success. And you two have gotten to the point to where you're just so fed up with life that whatever this is, I'm just going to deal with it, and we're going to accept it as is. And we're going to stay together because we want everybody to know that we married. We a couple now. I was married now. Why don't we take the time to teach the prerequisite knowledge first, to teach the necessary understanding first, before launching off into the deep and actually getting involved with the thing? So I just wanted to kind of add that to what you guys are saying, because I think it is a very interesting thing. Let's look at our poll real quick and see what the people say. What the people had to say as it pertains to this particular poll question. The question was, what do you think is the biggest reason men feel stuck in life? And I don't want you guys to feel, especially for any woman out there, that you can't answer this question, because it's not a true statement. You can answer this question because you have some background knowledge, information with men. So it's a question about how you feel. Do you feel this? Things of that nature, right? Not necessarily for a fact. So I just want to make sure I say that. And so when we look at these numbers, we got a tie between first and third place. I mean, between third and second place, which is they blame external circumstances and they avoid discomfort and hard decisions. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. But coming in at number one is the lack of clarity of purpose. And I have to agree that is the number one reason, in my opinion. You guys see that differently? Or you see another number one in your mind?
I do.
Okay.
Is it me being loud?
It might be me.
I I do see it differently. I didn't just choose it because I went with number 3. And the only reason I went with number 3 is based off of what I see, right? So so for those who don't know, I'm a high school counselor. So I have about just over 400 students on my caseload. And when I'm looking at the young men over there, I understand the clarity and the purpose. I get that. But I also think that most men don't really gain that clarity and purpose until somewhere around, midlife, right? So that's why I went away from that and chose the other one. And then yes, they do blame their circumstances. I definitely understand. I get all of these. I definitely get all of these, even the no responsibility. But one of the things that I see, and like I said, I went with number 3 over number 2 just based off of age, right? So I'm thinking that when I'm around these 14 to 18-year-old males every day, a lot of these dudes are avoiding the discomfort and the hard decisions. Simple, not simple things, but I get them coming in and they want to join the military, but their mom told them they don't want them to go. So there's a hard decision that they need to make, but they don't want to make the decision because they don't want to upset, or they avoiding the discomfort that they are going to have having that conversation with their mom. You know, they avoid taking the AP classes, even though they want to get into a certain university because it's difficult. It's going to add a level of discomfort, and it's going to be hard to. They got to make some decisions. So I only went with number 3 just based off of age, and then the ages I'm around these 14 to 18-year-olds, and I just think that a lot of times, yes, clarity and purpose, but I think that most men not really gaining their clarity and purpose to a little later on in life, and that's the only reason I went away from it.
Gary, what said you?
I agree with the lack of clarity and purpose. I actually chose that one as well, because I agree with everything Unc just said. To be honest with you, I'm not even gonna hold you. I agree with everything Unc just said, but I do believe that was an issue for me more so when I was a younger man. You know what I mean? In my teens and early 20 years, I think I did avoid uh, discomfort of hard decisions, right? That was, but that's also because I grew up. Life was just hard. I was tired of hard decisions and hard everything. Like, can we get something easy? Can I? You know what I mean? And and it wasn't until I realized that my hope was in the wrong thing. My hope was actually in things getting easier versus putting myself in a better condition. It wasn't that things were hard, is that things just hurt, because it sucks being poor. It sucks being hungry. It sucks being homeless. It sucks not having new clothes. It sucks not being able to buy J's when everybody else around you got J's, and we all live in the projects. I know you ain't got more money than me. You just, I don't know how you, but you get what I'm saying? Like, it sucks. And so you wanted you wanted things easier. So yes, I ran away from discomfort and hard decisions. But when I realized that the only way I was going to pay bills to live in a place that put me in a better condition was I had to face hard times and hard decisions and discomfort. Like, everything about the military is discomfort. Last time I was comfortable in nope, not even then. I was about to say, the only time I'm comfortable is when I'm sitting in front of my computer. Right? But even then, when you sit in front of your computer, you working. You're doing matrix. You updating records. You reading regs. So it's never. But I say confidently, and I could be wrong, but I say confidently that all 3 of the brothers on this platform right now embrace the discomfort when they know that is leading to something, because we've all had to do it. Right? I don't know when y'all went to basic. I went to basic in November. Wasn't nothing worse than walking to the field in the snow in South Carolina. I don't care how many socks you put on. Or
South Carolina. Bro,
Fort
you
Jackson.
did, bro.
Yeah.
I was in Fort Leonard Wood in November.
Hey, and it's still, you got rain and snow. I just got snow. So you understand what I'm saying. You know, so we
That's why
embrace.
that's why I didn't reach my potential, because it was cold out there. I'll tell you that right now.
That's why.
Cold, bro. I ain't trying to do no land now and it's sleeting out there. Tell you
Hey,
that
they
right
had
now.
us-
The weather. The
They had us
weather is the
kneeling in our
reason
position
why
and everything.
they don't reach their potential.
So if I can bring this back to the mass. So there is no wrong answer. I just want to make sure that I intentionally answered differently because I just thought that clarity of purpose was going to be everybody's answer, to just being honest. However, clarity of purpose is my number one biggest answer. And I think when you look at all of them can be tied to clarity of purpose. If you can bring if you can bring it back up one more time, please. All of them can be tied to clarity of purpose. I will blame external circumstances if I don't have a clearly defined understanding of purpose. I will avoid discomfort and hard decisions because I don't know what the hard decisions need to be about. And if I just view a hard decision as blanket, as a blanket thing, because I don't want to make the decision, I don't want to disappoint the people that I'm making these decisions for, so forth and so on. Well, that's because I do not understand or I have a laser focus on what I'm actually supposed to be doing. And then last one, no responsibility for the actions. Again, at the end of the day, if I don't have a clearly defined purpose, then it's like, well, I see Garfield, doing this thing. I want to get up there too, but I don't know how to get there. So it's like I'm going to blame everything else from preventing me from getting to where Garfield is at. So it's almost like, I don't know if you guys ever seen it. And it seemed like the TV series Loki is like a timeline, and then you have variations that go off of it. So a person, when they have a clear defined purpose, they stay on that path. But when they don't, they tend to veer off the beaten path. And the further away from that they get, knowingly or unbeknownst to them, the more difficult it becomes. So, and I think that not only is true, but always will be true. So thank you guys for that. Listen, shout out Crystal Everett. Greatly appreciate your support. Again, that's what that QR code up there is for. And she don't miss a beat. So thank you for that. And again, like I said, everything that's given to this channel is always given back to you guys in the form of what we provide for you in this community. So that said, I do want to give you a shift as it pertains to this, because moving from why is this happening to me to what can I create from this is literally the mind that it's like going from the scarcity perspective to recognize that there are endless possibilities regardless of whatever is going on. If I am looking at this thing and that it's affecting me and that's the only thing I can see, I can't even see what is possible. But if I'm not focused on that part and how it's affecting me, but understanding that this thing is actually trying to create something in me or bring something out of me, then I look for that. And if I look for that, now I can start seeing opportunity and possibility. Now, before we jump into rule number one, I want to bring up another poll real quick, because these polls are really what's going to get us kick-started in the right direction. This poll is, which of the three rules do you struggle with the most, right? Taking full ownership of your life, inner world before outer world focus, live by conviction, not comfort, or all of the above. Just in case you didn't know, these are the three rules that we're getting ready to go over, right? Taking full ownership of your life, you're choosing your inner world before the outer world, or live by conviction, not comfort. And number four is all of the above. And I'm gonna tell you what mine was when I was younger. My issue was definitely number two. It's a combination between number two and number three. I think it was more so of number two, but by all means, put your answer in the comment section, and that's how you're going to fill up the poll. So that said, rule number one: take full ownership of your life. In other words, stop being the victim, right? Start being a creator. So I want to ask a question before I go into any other thing out there. What are some of the main concerns when we wait for someone or something external to change before we take action? I ask again, what are some of the main concerns when we wait for someone or something external to change before we take action?
You can be disappointed. You can be lose out on things. You can miss promotions. You can miss out on your full potential if we want to take it back to the title of the show. All of these things. I think that, when you talking about, even going back to that victim mindset, when someone else is the reason why, then there is no responsibility on your part to do anything. If the reason why you can't get promoted is because where they don't promote people that look like me into those positions, then that's why you're not getting promoted. You know what I'm saying? Or it could be the truth. You know what I'm saying? Either way, it is what it is. So I think some of those main concerns, is that they can, back to the topic overall, it can keep you and prevent you from reaching your full potential. It can prevent you from getting that wife that you may want. It can prevent you from getting that job that you may want. All of these different things, when you say, oh, well, I can't get in, I have to go to this college in order to get this degree, in order to get this job. That's not for a lot of careers. That's not necessarily the way. There's a different, or there's an alternate path to still get to where you want to go. I'm not talking about like a doctor or certain things like that. They require certain paths. I'm talking about for most people, because most people are not those. Most people work regular jobs and different things like that. So I think, again, back to what are some of the main concerns when we wait for someone or something external to change. I think, again, one of the big concerns is that it prevents us from fill in the blank.
Can we pull it up again? I'm sorry. Main concerns when we wait for someone or something external to change before we take action. My struggle with this is I think a lot of people stagnate. I'm about to make up a word. And if I didn't make up a word, it was an accident. All right. So, but most people, stagnation comes from waiting for something external to change before we take action. I think I think sometimes we'll say, I'm gonna wait for Unc to tell me it's okay to do a thing before I do a thing. I don't want, because I want everybody to receive it, or I want to I want to do this project, but I'm gonna wait for someone to validate me and let me know that this is something to do. So I'm looking at this. Maybe I'm looking at it differently, but I feel as if we do wait so often for an external change before we make a move ourselves. And if I'm misunderstanding the way the question is worded, just correct me. But what are some of the main concerns when we wait? So I think if there's a concern that I have, waiting on something external to change before I take action, so it's that it may be too late.
Yeah, I get that. And I don't think your response is wrong, by the way. Because I think what I'm hearing you say is the main concern is that we do wait.
Yes.
Is that okay? Gotcha. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. That by itself is a concern, and I do agree with you. Wait, I'm sorry. Will you finish that? I wasn't trying to cut you off. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I do agree with you. I think if I am looking for something external to me to change, whether it's a person or a circumstance, I think that alone by itself prevents me from, and I know we're using the word purpose and calling interchangeably, so y'all just kind of work with us, right? I think I can't see my calling. I will never get to the point of understanding what I'm called to do because I'm so focused on the external circumstance or people to change before it gives me permission to step outside of what I'm currently in right now. So I won't relinquish those thought patterns that we talked about previously. I won't relinquish those patterns that keep me stuck simply because I need something to change in order for me to, at least in my mind, that's really what it is. It's not, this is not true though, but I need something to change in order for me to relinquish it. No, you're just going to hold on to it and then that thing is going to change. And then you're going to need the next thing to change. Then you're going to need the next person to change or give you permission or invite you into the room or whatever the case may be. But you're still going to have it. So the issue for me, the main concern is that I will never discover the thing that I'm called to do. I will never have clarity on that thing that I'm called to do. Therefore, I never move in that direction. And I stay stuck looping based upon what my current thought patterns are and me looking at the outside world, waiting on something to change. Because again, I need you to do it for me as opposed to me doing it for myself. So that's just kind of like my thoughts. Keep going with the comment with the poll because I'm seeing some comments. I'm seeing the responses here, and they're really good. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I see right now a large percentage of you say inner world before outer world focus. Live by conviction is 13% right now. Taking full ownership is 25%. No one says all of the above, which I thought is interesting. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I like what both of y'all said, but for some reason I keep going back to what Gaddy was talking about, and what you kind of just summed up was that sometimes we can wait too long for people to change that we miss out on stuff and I see that, I saw that in the military a lot, with guys even just staying in relationships for too long because they were giving their wife the benefit of the doubt that she was going to change. Or I'm just saying, I'm speaking from, and based off of stories and different things like that. And sometimes their perspective of what we may see, in the military, throughout the time that we was in there, and I like that. I think sometimes people they wait a long time. You know what I'm saying? And then next thing you know, they miss out. They miss out on them promotions and stuff like that, because they stuck in that relationship, So definitely see, that perspective about men can wait too long for somebody to change, and then, like it goes back to the last poll about, when you don't have that purpose, when you don't have that plan, like kind of out there flapping. You don't really know what to do. You don't even sometimes you don't even see certain things coming, so you don't know what to do. So
Yeah.
I hate
Not-
it.
yeah, I definitely like that because I'm thinking, I was thinking that even as coach was talking, like a lot of it comes from fear of not knowing what to do if I move.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like because like for instance, right? If I want to start, I want to start a book club. What what's my fear? My fear is what happens if people actually show up. I got to actually read this book. I got to actually understand it and talk about it. I got to articulate, right? Like I'm used to reading my book in my office by myself and telling myself what I read. You know what I mean? But now an idea that I got to sit and tell somebody else, right? Fear, I can go ahead to this promotion board, or I can validate my packet depending on where you at in your military career, right? But what's the fear? The fear is, what if I actually have to lead soldiers? What if I actually have to go as an S1 NCO and conduct a command and staff meeting?
Did y'all wait? Did y'all wait to get promoted to E5 to sergeant, or did y'all was like, man, I'm trying to get promoted now? Which one were y'all? I was the first one. I was like, I don't know if I want the responsibility. There was fear. There was, now you're E4, you're hanging out in the barracks, you're getting drunk, you're out there hunting, doing all of that stuff every weekend with all your homeboys. And then next thing you know, if you get promoted, now you're in charge of these dudes. You know what I'm saying? At least in the line unit back in the day, at least 12 Bravo, sometimes they'll move you to a different company or something like that. But with y'all, were y'all more of the fear of the responsibility and what came along with the E5, or were you guys more hard charging or somewhere in the middle? I just want to know.
Man, I thought I was ready for E5 in basic, to be honest.
You was ready for in basic?
I thought I was, you know. But to be honest with you, it took me, so I was kind of like in between. Like, it took me a while to make sergeant. And you know, so when the promotion system changed and they took all my points away, like, you're gonna take all my correspondence, all my military education away, and all, like, that hit me, that hit me hard mentally. And then I fell back into the comfortable being the E4 guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then one day somebody kicked me in the butt, was like, bro, as a E4 and as a corporal, like, you done led so many soldiers who are now staff sergeants getting looked at for sergeant first class. When you gonna get up off your butt and do the right thing? And that's when I was like, oh yeah, I'm the soup sandwich his divine is talking about. You know.
So for me, I'm gonna answer this and I'm gonna move forward, because we're having a very segregated conversation for people who don't understand nothing we're talking about. I was the E4 working on E6. Yeah, that was my mindset. I'm sorry. I wasn't worried about making E5. I was worried about making E6 as an E4. But I had people who put that in me. So
Gotcha.
yeah, so I want to end this poll. Thank you guys for your comments. Thank you guys for participating in this again. Again, 63% of the people say their inner world before their outer world focus. So I think that's interesting when we really stop and think about that, because I think there's a large percentage of people, not just on this platform, whether you're talking on the panel or whether you're in the comment section, I'm talking about in life. That's kind of like what I think the reality of it is. So that said, everybody who is listening to me right now, you are 100% responsible for your life, your results, your relationships, your character, your success, and your failures. Until you take radical ownership, you remain powerless. Stop blaming people for the things that happen to you. I don't care if they did something. You participated. Own your level of participation. Even at the lowest level, you decided to get involved with that person. You decided to be employed at that job. You decided to drive down that street at that time. You decided to leave your house at that time of night and going into the hood, knowing good and well, your grandma told you a long time ago, ain't nothing open after 11 o'clock, baby, but 7-Eleven, and you already know what the other thing is. You made that decision. So stop blaming people for the outcome. I say again, you are 100% responsible for your life. Own it. In fact, Jocko Willink said, extreme ownership. Leaders must own everything in their world. There is no one else to blame. Even in the Bible, Galatians chapter 6, verse 5 says, for every man should bear his own burden. The book of Ezekiel says, the soul that sinneth, it shall die. And there's no other soul that's gonna die for you, not no more. It gonna die. The son shall not bear the iniquity of the father, neither shall the father bear the iniquity of the son. People with an internal locus of control. And if you don't know what locus of control is, Google it. Trust me, it'll come to you. In other words, I'm inwardly focused, right? Me. Everything that happens, it's my fault. It's a result of this, right? People with an internal locus of control are significantly more successful and happier than those with an external locus of control. And that comes from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. Men who take personal responsibility for their health are 60% more likely to maintain healthy habits long term. Men's Health Foundation 2024. Gentlemen, my second question for point number one, real quick. If every excuse were removed, upbringing, circumstance, other people's actions, ethnicity, politics, whatever you want to blame, how would you describe what's left that's purely your responsibility outside of saying everything?
Opportunity. That's how I would describe it. You have now the opportunity to shape your life in whichever direction you decide. Like what's the excuse? Upbringing, circumstances, and other people's action is out the way. Now all that's left is opportunity, and it's up to you whether or not that is going to become opportunity lost or opportunity taken advantage of. And so, which path are you going to are you going to go after? That to me, that's how I would describe it.
I like opportunity. I'm similar. I wrote down actions or application. You know, once you strip away all the circumstances and all of the white noise or black noise or whatever noise you want to have back there, um, culture. Once you strip all the excuses away, now and all you got is application. You know, and to go with your two different things, you can take a handful of beans and you can throw them on the ground, or you can put them in rolls. Either way, it's something. One's going to take a little bit more planning than the other, but either way, you're doing something. So I think once you strip everything away, what you got is purely our responsibility, and that's the application. And even that application may extend to creating some sort of plan. The application may extend to taking time digging in and figuring out what your purpose is. So that's where I want to go with it, the application piece.
I got that. I see opportunity, I see application, and I raise your discovery. And here's why I like all three of them together. Because at the end of the day, we talked about fear. Fear prevents me from discovering something outside of what I already know. Fear prevents me from applying, the thing that's out there, the opportunity, right? So it's like discovery of the opportunity now leads to the application, and fear stands in the middle, stand in between me and all of that. So now, when I remove every excuse out of the way, the opportunity awaits for me to discover it and then apply what I know. I may fail. That's fine. I should not fear trying again, because at that point, that failure taught me something different outside of what I knew prior to. So thank you, gentlemen, for that. I want to kind of keep pressing real quick. We may not. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, His Divine Appointment, for your support in this community. We greatly appreciate your gift of love, and we value you. Thank you so much. Um, so I want to kind of roll over into number two, because at the end of the day, we're not going to make it through it all, just so you know. So that means next week we may pick it up. Just saying. Number two, master your inner world before you conquer the outer. Build from wholeness, not brokenness. Listen, I don't think y'all understand. I really want to stop right there and just talk about the difference between wholeness and brokenness. What does that look like? What does that mean in the average person's life? Especially, how does a person get to wholeness when they grew up seeing nothing but brokenness? Broken family, broken promises, all these other great things. How do you get to wholeness there? That's something I want everybody to process in their mind as we are going forward and thinking about this. Gentlemen, what I want you to do is answer this question right quick. Given our current landscape, yep, I'm starting it off that way. What are we potentially building externally that our internal world isn't strong enough to sustain? Yeah, the look on your face just now was classic. I just wanted to say that.
Man, I'm trying to come up with something. I'm thinking about the first part, but I'm trying to figure out how to combine it with the inner world. When I'm thinking about inner world, what am I thinking about?
I tell you what, I will start this one off then. I think we are building a unsustainable system of dysfunction. What do I mean when I say that? We are, given the current landscape, if we are continuing down the same path, we are going to make our own selves obsolete and don't even realize it. We're literally seeing right now in the younger generation, they don't want to get married. They do not want to have children. Well, if an entire culture, and it's not 100%, so it's not going to get to ground zero, right? But if an entire culture, for the most part, a large preponderance that is, of the younger generation has that mentality, they don't want to be married, they don't want to have children. If that now becomes the primary modality of thinking, what do you think happens to the population as the older generations start dying off? So we are creating a perpetual cycle of something that is non-sustainable. And at the end of the day, when we become, and let's be honest, we're already the minority. And I'm not, and please, as you're listening to me, please do not think that I am turning this into an ethical cleansing conversation. That's not what it is. I don't believe we're intentionally cleansing ourselves. I think we're subconsciously cleansing ourselves. We're subconsciously and ignorantly cleansing ourselves simply because we're ignorant to what the root cause of the problem is. The root cause of the problem is not me, it's not you, it's not my brother, it's not my sister, it's not any of that. It is something that happened years ago that created a mindset. And because that mindset was created, now we've turned against one another. And now we are our biggest enemies. Not anybody who was voted into seats, not anybody who, gets on TV and stuff, not any of those things. It is ourselves. So when you look at the current landscape, we are potentially building our own demise, and our internal world was not created to sustain that. Our internal world was created to flourish, and we have suppressed that to such a degree that it's very hard and very difficult to release it now.
I love that because I was going in a similar direction. And I love what you said because and what was said in the chat too. Somebody brought up their son said the same thing because it's rough out here when you look at the landscape, right? And so for me, I'm looking at it like, and I'm saying in its totality, I'm just saying that we're creating a lawless world, and that lawless world, can our internal world actually handle it? If you live by conviction at any level, I could tell you that the way that the world is going is going to be hard to actually stay a part of the system mentally, right? Because if I live according to my conviction, then a lot of things I have to speak up about. I'm afraid that things that we have, and just hear me out, because I felt like this a few administrations ago, but I felt like we had people in office that was pushing everything so hard to the left, and that another administration was going to come behind to counter it, was going to go so hard to the right. And I feel like we see that, like, we went so extremely liberal that there's no boundaries to almost anything now, right? And then now we have, it's like we flipped and we had a regime that is just so traditional, and I use that word traditional very lightly, talking about traditional as far as our nation, culture, and time, that we're going so hard right that it almost feels like we're living pre-1960s, right? Just from ideology. And so I think it's coming to a point to where now you'll see both parties moving in such extreme measures to get to what they want, that anybody that has any morals, any standards, any conviction, there's not going to be a space. And so if we don't create a space now, if we don't create a voice now, if we don't stand up now, I think that we'll end up in a position to where we won't be able to. And so
I like what both of y'all have mentioned so far. So given the question, given our current landscape, what are we potentially what are given our current landscape, what are we potentially building externally that our internal world isn't strong enough to sustain? So I was thinking around, I wrote down peace, I wrote down clarity, but what I want to I'm gonna come back to that, but I think that right now, one of the things that we're building is a very loud, congested world. And what I mean by that is, and it's not just physically, I'm talking about um social media and then just the fact that we can connect with people all over the world with just a click of a button or just logging into a certain app and stuff like that. So now I think because we have the phones, and that's not even a bad thing. I'm just saying, but just because we have these things, we're able to connect. So the world is a lot louder. The world is a lot more, can be a lot more congested, different things like that. And I think what that is causing, and maybe what the world isn't strong enough to sustain is, you know, that peace, that clarity, that understanding. Again, talking about the phones and the social media and just the information. Like we have access to so many information. Like right now, we probably can go online right now and there is probably 100 different videos that may talk about something that's similar to this type of subject or something like that. And it may come from totally different types of perspective. You know what I'm saying? And so someone is tuning in and they're like, oh man, it's great information. Well, I like what coach said. I can rock with that, but I ain't rocking with what Unc said or what Gaddy said. But Unc and Gaddy might be totally right, or maybe what's best for that person. But you see, just because we have so much access to information and stuff like that, and then the world and different things like that, I think that sometimes it's hard for us to get clarity, and I think it's sometimes hard for people to get that peace and that understanding and different things like that, because it's hard, when you're constantly on your phone or you got the news on and you don't know what's going on, you don't know what's left and which one is right. It's kind of hard to get that internal peace when you're walking around on life on eggshells and you walking around in constant fear about everything that's going on. So I think, again, given our current landscape, particularly potentially building externally that our internal world is strong enough to sustain. I think the loud world congestion is robbing us of some of that peace and clarity.
To your point, I apologize. I had a little hiccup just now. To your point, it is a common thing that the more choices you have, the more confused you are. Like we don't, as a human being, we don't like having a plethora of choices because it makes us confused. We like one, two, or okay. I'll make it this simple. You got an ungodly amount of choices of all kind of other things out there. But in the political realm, you really only got three choices, and one of those choices are obsolete. Anybody ever question that? Why don't I have 10 different choices there? I got 10 different choices for my, however I want to be identified as. I got 10 different choices for the type of house I want, the type of car I want, the job. I got an ungodly amount of choices out there as it pertains to those things. But it's really only one thing. Would only give you two options, and that's it. Has anybody ever thought and asked themselves why? It's that simple as far as I'm concerned. All you have to do is pay attention to it. It's right there in our face, and a lot of times we miss it. So that said, gentlemen, and I love what everybody said. What happens when the weight of our success exceeds the strength of our foundation. And success is dependent upon how that person described it for themselves. In fact, and I want you guys to look at it from how you viewed it, right? So in the landscape conversation, as I was talking about how we are subconsciously and ignorantly cleansing ourselves based upon the decisions that we are making. So the success of those decisions ultimately will exceed the foundation, right? The strength of the foundation, and the foundation itself was built on a family structure. Well, if those decisions become successful, there is no foundation, there is no family structure, there is no expression on in the earth as it pertains to the marriage between Christ and the church.
I had a Sergeant Major tell me one time, he said, don't worry about people who get promoted. I'm going back to the military. He said, don't worry about people who get promoted. He said, if people get promoted before they're supposed to, it's going to show. So I'm kind of looking at it like this. If we take this, if we look at just weight and then we look at strength and foundation, if I have something, if my foundation is weak and I put something that's too heavy on top of it, it's going to fall over. Now, I'm not saying that in this situation that if you fall over, if you stumble, you can't recover. But I do think that sometimes what happens is that when the weight of our success exceeds the strength of our foundation, I think that sometimes it can cause us to fall or to stumble or to possibly even have to go back and backtrack and to kind of figure out some things. So that's where I want to stop at right there. See what else y'all got.
So anytime your foundation is not strong enough to hold up the house that you're building, what happens is you have the illusion of success, the illusion of safety, the illusion of moving forward, the illusion of a secured house, but the walls are cracking. When that foundation gets weaker than the house, the foundation begins to shift before it's time, you know, and that's when you start seeing those little cracks in your walls, in your ceilings. You start seeing everything that was built on top of that foundation begin to slowly come down, or be in danger of coming down. And then sometimes it'll cost you almost as much as the house is worth to fix, because you have to fix the foundation. And sometimes that means you have to lose a little bit of what's on top of the foundation in order to get the foundation fixed or strong enough so that this way you can now begin to build on top of the foundation again. So when our success exceeds the strength of our foundation, everything we have worked and built begins to fall. And we see it happen to people. Like you talk about family. I've seen people not have a strong foundation on the idea of marriage. Right? I'm going somewhere, but they were successful in the military. But you have a weak foundation of what family looked like. And when that foundation of family disappeared, guess what? They lost everything that they were working for. And either they did something stupid. You get those who cheated on their spouse, and their spouse reported to the chain of command, and the chain of command did what the regulation told them to do. Or you played the game and you made it past that year mark, and now that she walked away, she walking away with half your pension. Who fault? Because of the foundation. And I'm just using that as one example. All right, we have to strengthen the foundation, because what was your idea of marriage built on? Was it built like Coach said? Was it built on what you saw? right? And I'll be honest with you, I wanted to be a father and a husband so bad, primarily because I've seen so many bad versions of it. I wanted to build a family that my children can grow up in and 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 be different, be set apart, because their foundation that they had was different than the foundations of those who were around them, right? But hey, and this is why you never really hear me talk about, the things that went wrong in marriages, right? Because I can point the finger all day. Trust me, I can point it all day. I grow new fingers to keep pointing, right? But here's here's the problem. Here's the problem. I know for a fact that my foundation of what marriage looks like is faulty. Because I just told y'all a couple of episodes ago that I have not seen a marriage that I ever wanted to emulate. I have not seen somebody's marriage and say, I want that. Not in real life. I get the Cosby. I get everybody wanted to be the Cosbys. But in real life. And so I moved into marriage with that ideology. So when she walks around and say this, that, and the third about me, now I can say certain things. I could tell you if it's a lie. If you tell me I did something, I know I did the opposite of. But if you're saying that my behavior was like this, I wasn't this, and I wasn't this that you needed, I wasn't that you needed, she might be right. Because maybe I didn't know she needed, because I didn't know what the signs look like. I never met a husband who taught me how to look at a wife and know that she needs this at this moment. I knew that I was going to have to learn that along the way. And that's why I always tell people, and I'm going to shut up. That's why I always tell people we're in the generation to where we just might have to suck it up through some tough marriages to get it right. Because if we be honest with each other, we don't know as much as we think we do. We don't know. We're figuring it out. A lot of us are figuring it out. And I'm gonna shut up.
Yeah, you're good, and I see what time, so we gotta close out here. But you're good. Not only that, because I love where you are, because in most cases there are very few, if any, and I'm using that term generously. There are very few, if any, that say that they had a model, a proper, accurate model when it comes down to marriage. They had a model, but I'm talking an accurate model based upon what it is supposed to be. And take that, move it forward. We don't know as much as we think we know. And here's the reality of the truth. Those of us who walk around perpetrating that we know everything, I would argue to say that they know even less. Not so much as even less than what they think they know, but even less than what not only you believe they know, but also combined with what they think they know less than that. So just by virtue of them wanting to brag about what they know is evidence that they don't know, and that's their fear mechanism, because they're afraid of being exposed if the right person comes along and asks the right question. I want to share these points real quick. And gentlemen, I think we're going to forego final thoughts tonight. And here's why. I don't want people to believe that this conversation is over. This conversation, there's a lot more to unpack. If you are out there and you are a young man, if you are a mother that has a boy child, I implore that you sit that young man down behind the screen and make him look at this episode. Because, and you gentlemen can tell me if I'm wrong, if you had this to sit and listen to as a young teenager, do you believe, just north, south, or east, or west, do you believe that this would have set you in the direction on a proper glide path? For me, it's a resounding, I would have paid money. I don't know where I would have got it from. I probably listen. I don't know where I would have got it from. I would have paid money to have something like this. Somebody to sit down and take this time to talk to me about 3 things that I need in my life and ensure that I have those 3 things at the forefront of my mind. So that's why I don't want to do final thoughts tonight. I want to leave everybody with a few points to go along with rule number 2. First is you cannot build a great life on a broken foundation. Go back and listen to what that young man just said about marriage. If your marriage wasn't patterned, well, let me say it like this. If Big Mama and Pawpaw, if Mama and Daddy, if Uncle Rufus and Auntie Shirley, if their marriage wasn't rooted in the foundation of Christ in the church, that's not a good model to follow. I'm sorry. I have to say it that way because that's what every marriage is supposed to be patterned after. And that said, external success built on internal chaos is unstable and unsustainable. Next, most men chase money, status, and achievement while their minds are undisciplined. I want you to let that set in for a second. Because if you have an undisciplined mind and chase money, chase status, and chase achievement, you're going to use the accomplishment of those things in an undisciplined manner. And you see it all the time in the NBA, in the NFL. Now, I'm not highlighting those individuals because conversely, there's a lot of people in the NBA and the NFL that's doing a lot of great things. But guess who gets more of the publicity? Those people who are not. And unfortunately, their emotions are unregulated, which just exacerbates the problem. And their spirits are disconnected from God. This is why they achieve everything and feel nothing. That's how they can have a bank account busting out the seam, but they go into some cycle of depression. According to my old mentor, John Maxwell, you will never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine. Last point, 77% of people regularly experience physical symptoms caused by stress, and 73% experience psychological symptoms, according to the American Institute of Stress in 2025. I want to leave you guys with this as we get ready to close out for this evening. This is a very serious conversation. We do too much competing back and forth, men and women. You see it all over social media. I think it's time for that to stop. That's just my opinion. I'm one man, right? We do too much competing back and forth. It's time for us to start collaborating. Stop living your life through the lens of fear, focusing on what you don't want, and live your life through the lens of abundance and focus on what he promised, not what you want, because what you want ultimately is found in what he promised. You just don't know that. And so in your mind, focusing on what you want is still a scarcity mindset. That said, listen, you guys are awesome. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And as always, let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else. And we will see you next week here on The Hearts of Men.